Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order the planning board meeting for June 21st, 2022. My name is Carrie Marnak. I'm chair of the planning board. Before we get started, I just have a few announcements to read. This open meeting of the planning board is being conducted remotely consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of June 16, 2021, an act relative to ending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. All members of the planning board are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows the planning board to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed on the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. I'd like to confirm now that board members in person anticipated on the agenda are remotely present. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Bill Pierce?
Here.
Millie Milton?
Here.
Anthony Zaitin?
Here.
Amy Paretsky?
Here.
And staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Laurie Connors?
Here.
Bob Federico?
Here.
Ground rules for the meeting. The chair will invite each speaker or applicant on the agenda by name to make a presentation and speak to the application. Participants will provide their full name and hold until their name is called. Each speaker will be asked to mute their phone or computer when not speaking and speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. Those responding will be asked to wait until the floor is yielded to them by the chair. Speakers who wish to respond to comments of others do so through the chair, taking care to identify themselves. Each vote taken by the board or committee will be conducted by a roll call vote. For public comment by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand and wait to be recognized by the chair. Please note party or phone number will be visible. By Zoom, click raise hand on the bottom of your screen and wait to be recognized by the chair. The chair will ask members of the public who wish to speak to identify their names and addresses only. Once the chair has a list of all public commentators, the chair will call on each by name and afford 3 minutes for commentators. And with that, why don't we get started? The first item on our agenda this evening is the public hearing for 180 Barefoot Road special permit and special permit with site plan review. And Laurie, I understand we have a request to continue this hearing.
We do. We do also have a public hearing notice to read into the record, and then I can read the email continuing the public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry. We didn't even read the notice for 180 yet. Great. Thanks for that. Okay. If you wouldn't mind that, that'd be great.
In accordance with the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 9, the Northborough Planning Board will hold a public hearing on June 21st, 2022 at 6 p.m. to consider the application for site plan approval in the Industrial District for 180 Barefoot Road, Map 28, Parcel 42, submitted by Madeline Properties, LLC, WDA Design Group, Incorporated, to allow the construction of a 6,300 square foot 9-bay garage and associated improvements on the existing contractor's yard. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law on June 16, 2021, as amended by Chapter 22 of the Acts of 2022. This meeting will be conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance by members of the public will be permitted. To participate in the public comment portions of this meeting from a PC, Mac, iPad, iPhone, or Android device, please click this URL to join or join by phone 1-646-876-9923, webinar ID 874-7970-1243, passcode 032894. This application is on file at the town clerk's office and in the planning department. Carrie Martinet, chairman. That's it.
Thank you. And so following that is a request to continue?
Yes.
Okay, and for that, is that we have them on the agenda then for July 14th?
Yes. Do you want me to read the continuance, or is that okay just to continue?
I think our board members okay with just voting to continue. They requested to continue to July 14th meeting.
Yep. Sure.
Yep.
Okay, so July 14th, what time for this one?
6:30 p.m.
Okay, great. Is there a motion to continue the public hearing for 180 Barefoot Road special permit and special permit with site plan review to July 14th at 6:30 p.m.?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, Bill,
Yes.
Millie,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
And carries an aye. So that is continued to the 14th, July 14th at 6:30. Next on the agenda, we have continued public hearing for 100 Barefoot Road, special permit and special permit site plan approval. And this also has a request to continue.
Correct. I received an email from Vito, from the engineer, asking for a continuance. He said that he still is waiting on the traffic report and he needs to coordinate the changes with landscape and lighting. So he requested a continuance until the next hearing day. That should be enough time to complete the coordination of plans. So that would be also July 14th at 6:40 p.m. would be great.
Okay. So is there a motion to continue the public hearing for 100 Barefoot Road special permit and special permit site plan approval to July 14th at 6:40 p.m.?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor, Bill,
Aye.
Millie,
Aye.
Anthony,
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
And carries an aye. So that will be continued, 100 Barefoot Road will be continued to July 14th at 6:40 p.m. Next on the agenda, we have the public hearing for 75 Ridge Road special permit common driveway and special permit with site plan review. And for this, do we have a public hearing notice?
We do, but unfortunately that agenda item is posted for 6:20 p.m. So I'm wondering if maybe you folks could deal with the minutes first. Maybe some of the announcements.
Sure, we can do that. Why don't we move then to the consideration of minutes? So we have the minutes from May 17th and also June 7th. Why don't we start with May? I think Lori, you did you distribute minutes that had edits, amendments, or were there no amendments to the 17th? Oh, Lori.
Yes, I received edits from two folks on the planning board, so I have incorporated those edits and I emailed them over to you earlier today. to the
Oh,
complete-
yep. Great. Okay, did everybody have a chance to read the minutes as amended?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, would anyone like to make a motion to accept the May, oh, I'm sorry, are there any further amendments to the minutes for May 17th?
Nope.
Okay, would anyone like to make a motion to accept the minutes as amended for May 17th?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, Bill,
Aye.
Millie,
Aye.
Anthony,
Aye.
Amy,
Aye.
and carries an aye. Minutes are approved as amended. Okay, next we have the minutes from June 7th. Did everyone have a chance to read the amended minutes for June 7th?
Yes.
Yep.
Are there any questions or further amendments to the minutes?
No.
No.
There actually weren't any amendments on those ones. I did not receive any changes for June 7th.
Hold on one second. I thought I had June 7th. Maybe I'm thinking the 17th. Nope, you're right. You're right. I did not. Okay, then there are no amendments to those minutes. Would anybody like to make a motion to approve the minutes from June 7th as submitted?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, Bill,
Aye.
Millie,
Aye.
Anthony,
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
And carries an aye. The minutes from June 7th are accepted as submitted. Next on our agenda, we don't have, oh, the next Master Plan Implementation Committee is July 21st. But perhaps with the extra minutes we have here, Amy, there was, or even Laurie or Millie, we just had a meeting a couple of days ago or last week. So anything that came out of there?
Well, Lori might want to mention, she wrote an RFP
Oh,
to go out to the contractor. So I don't know if you mind, Lori.
No, no problem. So I completed the RFP a few weeks ago. I was awaiting feedback from the town administrator, and I did just receive that feedback today, as well as the go-ahead. So this week I will be submitting the ads. And then hopefully we will have the proposals in hand 1 month from now. So generally from the time that the ad hits the newspaper to the receipt of the proposals, I like to give them 3 weeks time. So that is what I expect. At the last committee meeting, a subcommittee was selected to review the various proposals. It's a subcommittee of 5. So I'm excited. I think that we're finally moving forward with it, and it should be pretty exciting, and look forward to the visioning process and getting all sorts of great ideas from the business and downtown community and the wider population.
Nice. And I know you mentioned ads. Is there anyone that we can tap on the shoulder to submit an RFP, or that's not okay to do?
Yes, I have a couple of folks that I've worked with in the past and was really happy with. So certainly VHB has done a lot of work with the town, so they'll be among that crew. I've also done some work with Weston and Sampson, and of course they designed the Commons, so they're very familiar with Northborough as well as the center. And so I think we're going to have a good response here.
Very nice. Anything else of note from master plan?
Nope, I'm just really excited. Oh, sorry.
The last committee, we really kind of honed in on what the study area will be. So pretty much everybody was asked to kind of draw a map of what they thought that the study area would be. And then I drew a composite map based on all the feedback received. And there were certain roads that pretty much everybody agreed on. And so that is essentially going to be the study area. There were a couple of other areas that most people agreed with that we decided to lump in with the roads that everybody agreed with. And then there are some outliers that we will still kind of draw the attention of the consultant team to as being important for connections. So we were talking about increasing accessibility for bicyclists as well as pedestrians, making sure that the sidewalks in these areas are compliant. So yeah, so the first major task has been undertaken.
Wow, that's exciting. Any questions from board members on that one? Okay, and then we don't have any A&Rs, lot releases, or bonds?
We do not.
Okay. Any subcommittee updates? I have a quick one. We just had the annual meeting for CMRPC, and I think I mentioned this a couple meetings ago, but I am stepping down from the executive committee. But fortunately, Julianne Hirsch is stepping up on the executive committee. So we'll still have representation on that committee. She's also on the committee that helps to review some of those grants. So that's something to keep in mind when we come around to DLTA grants.
That's great.
That Julianne's there. And I think it'll be nice. She's been the selectman rep for as long as I've been the planning board rep. So we've both really been involved, and I think she'll be great to be a part of that. And so I'm glad that she's the one.
Great. And I wonder also if maybe we can hone in on our August meeting date. We had talked about that a little bit at the last meeting. I know that I am going to be on vacation the first week in August. I think a couple of others had mentioned that they also will be unavailable. So it would be helpful in case an application comes in, that we know exactly what the meeting date will be, whether it's going to be the 2 meeting dates in August, or whether it's just going to be one, and what date works best for both.
That's
folks.
right. So we never decided that at the last one. So why don't we figure that out? So normally we would have the 9th and the 23rd. And
Yes.
the cutoff for applications haven't come yet, but do you anticipate any sort of?
I have not, people have been buzzing around. So we've met with a few different folks who are interested in submitting applications in the near future, but not like within the next week or two. So it's hard to pin people down, but so far I have nothing for that August meeting, that first August meeting.
Okay. So would we be safe with one August meeting so far?
I think we would be.
Board members, do you want one or do you want to do this twice?
I think one is fine.
Yeah.
Okay, well, here's a question that we threw out last time, and I think we hoped we'd have more information by now. Well, can we still be remote in August, or do you anticipate any changes when does the order expire? Is it July?
It expires in July, but we have not received any guidance. Have you heard anything, Bob?
Sorry about that. No, I have not. I've not heard anything about it.
Okay. Can we assume for now, if you haven't heard anything, do you think that's a sign? I know you don't have a crystal ball, but do you think that's a sign that we're probably okay to continue remote?
I would be surprised if they don't extend that just because it's so popular. I know a lot of communities have said how helpful it is and that it's really increased the attendance at the various meetings. But it might be a last minute change because I know last time it was pretty much a last minute change.
So I remember last time when we went through this drill, it seemed like if it was going to turn back, if we were going to allow for a hybrid model, the town had to adopt some sort of policy to enable hybrid meetings. Is that something, and I don't even know if I doubt that comes from us, that probably comes from the Board of Selectmen. Is that something that we should start prepping as a town to have that policy in place in case it flips over? It's out of our jurisdiction, but just mentioning it.
I can
thought-
talk with John Kader about it.
For some reason, I remember that. Does anyone remember? Am I misremembering? I thought there was some sort of policy we would have needed in place.
Sounds familiar.
Okay, well, either way, let's pretend it's remote. What works in August for everybody? Do we have any vacation weeks? Laurie, you're off the first week, you said?
I am.
Okay. Any other weeks that are not okay? Would we want to stick with our first Tuesday in August or our second Tuesday? I know in terms of scheduling, it seems like sometimes we get in trouble trying to use the webinar line. So I'm wondering if we stick to our usual Tuesday date, if that'll help alleviate conflicts, meeting conflicts.
So just in general, if we're back in person, I'm probably gonna have a good challenge being in person, but I'm not certain about when.
Okay, regardless of date, if in person, you'd have trouble, you may have trouble.
I may, yeah.
Okay, so if we picked, would it make the most sense to stick with our regularly, and when you say the first week in August, it falls squarely on a Monday. So you mean the week of August 1st, Laurie, for you?
I do. Yep. So I would be able to attend August 9th.
Okay. So would board members prefer the first Tuesday or the third Tuesday? No, sorry, the fourth, the second and the fourth. Is that when no, we're the first and the third.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. I'm used to being the second and the fourth.
So then maybe we should do the third, the
Oh, we
16th.
have to do the 16th. That's good.
And that's almost a month after the
Yeah.
14th. So
Okay. So how about we will plan for no meeting on August 2nd and one meeting in August on the 16th. Now, if the only possible issue would be if we get some sort of A&R, but the timing would have to be just right to mess that up, right?
Usually people are pretty considerate when you explain that there's no meeting in between. Often you can ask them to submit a letter extending the period of time that the planning board has to act.
Okay,
And people are pretty considerate about that, especially given the summer vacation schedules.
okay. So we have then for the summer meetings for the planning board will meet on July 14th, which is actually a Thursday. And we will meet, let me double check that. Yep, July 14th is a Thursday, and then August 16th, which is a Tuesday. So those will be the only two meetings of the summer for the planning board. Okay, great. And then the next ZBA meeting is June 28th. Anything of note for the ZBA meeting?
No, we only have two applications. They're both sign applications up at Northborough Crossing.
Okay. Okay, great. And with that, it looks like we at least hit the 6:20 mark. We're at 6:21. So why don't we call to order the public hearing for 75 Ridge Road, special permit common driveway and special permit with site plan review. If you wouldn't mind reading the public hearing notice.
In accordance with the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 9, the Northborough Planning Board will hold a public hearing on June 21st, 2022 at 6:20 p.m. to consider the application for site plan approval and a common driveway special permit in the Residential C District for 75 Ridge Road, map 65, parcels 88 and 89, submitted by Down East Residential LLC. The proposed common driveway will serve 3 proposed single-family homes. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law on June 16, 2021, as amended by Chapter 22 of the Acts of 2022, this meeting will be conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance by members of the public will be permitted. To participate in the public comment portions of this meeting from a PC, Mac, iPad, iPhone, or Android device, please click this URL to join. Or join by phone, 1-646-876-9923, webinar ID 874-7970-1243, passcode 032894. The application is on file at the town clerk's office and in the planning department. Carrie Martinek, chairman.
Great, thank you. So it looks like, Damon, we have you on the line. I'm gonna, if you want to unmute yourself, it looks like you're here twice though, so I'm not sure. You might be on phone and video. And then if you have anyone else in your team.
Thank you. We have my business partner, Ben Laguerre, and also our engineer, Scott Cameron, who's going to be doing most of the talking.
Oh, great. Okay, Scott, I got him. And Ben, you said, I don't see on here. Is he?
He might be trying to fiddle with it. He might be here in a bit.
Okay.
Hi guys, I'm on.
Okay, great. So it looks like we have Scott and Damon, and it just looks like you're on twice, Damon, but I assume that's.
That's weird.
See the balls?
And then you, sounds like you have another little applicant with you.
Oh, that's Ben.
Okay. Why don't we get started then? So it sounds like Scott, you're doing most of the presentation. I just wanted to mention, make sure I have all the right materials. So we have, or the board has the right materials. We have the planning director's questions, comments, and recommendations. We have a letter from the fire chief. We have comments from DPW. Nothing from Fred on this one. Okay, so those are the materials we have. All right, great. Well, with that, Scott, if you want to get started.
Madam Chair, thank you. Good evening,
Hello.
members of the board and staff. For the record, my name is Scott Cameron with the Moore and Cameron Group at 25 Canosa Ave in Haverhill, Mass. And you heard Damon here from Down East Residential LLC and Ben Laguerre also here. And thank you for having us this evening. It's been a long road getting here. Would it be okay if I shared my screen?
Sure, please do.
Okay. So let me know when that pops up.
Yep, I can see site development plans.
Perfect. Okay. So thank you for the introduction and the summary of the documents in hand, in addition to the correspondence from staff, which we have also received. You should have these site development plans. You should have a technical report, which has stormwater and other aspects in it, letter, narrative, application documents, and then in a separate submittal, we did provide a landscape plan about a week later. But you should have all that information in your packet. I'll walk through mainly the plans tonight and the staff correspondence. But yeah, so this is a project we started looking at back in 2019, pre-pandemic. And it was a property that when you first step foot on it, you're taken away by two things. One, the views out onto Bartlett Pond, and then two, the state of the property. And I don't think anybody here is unfamiliar with it because we've been before you looking at alternative development options in the form of possible zoning changes as we explored various avenues to clean up this property. But yes, this is a residentially zoned property on Ridge Road with 8 structures on it that were are in various states of habitation or non-inhabitable for single family uses. And what I wanted to do is walk you through to introduce you a little bit to the property, a little more intimate basis. I do have some photos I'm going to share with you. But this property sits on the north side of Ridge Road. It has more or less, it's a butter is Bartlett Pond. It's kind of a peninsula property. We, back in 2019, submitted an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation to the Conservation Commission. They reviewed it and they approved an order of resource area delineation, identifying the wetland resource areas, which establish the kind of limit of upland versus wetland. And it's the pond. There's a fringe of wetland along the edge and there's a small isolated pocket, but the Bartlett Pond more or less forms 2/3 of the boundary. Ridge Road forms the other boundary along the frontage. There's well north of 600 feet of frontage on the property. And as you can see, the neighborhood in this area consists of both single family and 2-family dwellings. So I'm going to start with, here's the existing conditions plan. And we did do a topographic survey and a boundary survey of the property, which consists of 2 parcels, 0.62 acre and a 3.11 acre parcel. You can see on this plan, if I zoom in a little bit, you'll see these notes for existing dwelling or existing shed. You'll see existing cesspools. There are other cesspools we were not able to locate. There are areas of foundations where I'm moving my cursor now. There's ruins of an old foundation here. You can see these dwellings are all mostly single bedroom, kitchen, living, small areas, and they're scattered around the property. There's an existing dock, which was still floating as of last year. I haven't poked my head over there recently. There are shallow wells. There are deeper wells, more conventional potable wells for water supply. There's hoses running out into the pond where I believe they're probably pulling water out of the pond for usage. And the property is serviced by a single driveway, right kind of in the bend of Ridge Road that comes up into the property, into kind of a faux little turnaround area. And then it kind of spiders out into the various habitation areas. And yeah, the views from the property are breathtaking. I saw this for the first time in fall with the foliage in place. It's quite amazing. But when you get on the property, you're welcomed by this. And it's the result of many, many years of this type of use in the property, upkeep dissipating over time. But this is one of the dwellings. This is to the right, Ridge Road. You can see in a abutting is to your right here in this photo. And as I kind of walk through this a little bit, you'll get a feel for the condition of the property. You can see the trash and debris is a common theme. You can see the tree laying on top of this kind of reddish building here, trees growing right up against the buildings. This is that old foundation. This, we believe, was another structure at one point that collapsed. You can see the concrete foundation and the remains above it. This is a shed right on the waterhand. You kind of see the pond behind here, and this would be on the left side of the property. Again, more debris. This is actually a tree that it grew up over a cast iron sink, and then if it was cut down or fell down. This is common throughout the property too. The trees have kind of grown up through things.
Mm.
And I don't, if you have had a chance to come by here, I don't recommend you walk around through the, off any paved areas in the property. The cesspools in particular, several of them are open and they're hard to see because of the ground cover. So this is just the main driveway coming in. You can kind of see in the back here, this open light area. That is actually straight off the back of the driveway where I'm moving my cursor now. That's just an area of the trees are kind of either fallen down or been cut down, and they've been kind of using it for, looks like they were hunters. So they were kind of doing their cleaning and gutting and those activities out here, but it's kind of like a large open area there. I didn't unfortunately keep a photo of the PT Cruiser, which also welcomes you right at the beginning of the property. It's got a tree on top of it, just kind of sitting there. So the message I'm painting is the property has been intensely used for a long period of time. And these piles of garbage, I did scale one of them, which I measured about 8 feet tall, maybe about 30 feet around. I wasn't sure how deep below the ground it went, but it's just garbage on garbage on garbage. So there's one of the challenges we faced when we first saw this was obviously there's a baseline cost to getting this property just back to a state where it could be used. And it's really getting in here and removing all of this material, probably disposing of it, demolishing the structures, going through the DEP, you have asbestos and other clearances you have to do. There's one above ground oil tank we observed. It doesn't appear that it was in use, but we got to check all that. So all that's going to be done in accordance with regulations, statutes, fire department's involved. I see Mr. Frederico is on the call here. He would be involved on demolition permits. Mass DEP is involved for various different clearances you have to do. So we're starting there with the property. And we've been looking and searching for ways to, to make this viable economically and also not completely strip the land of all of its value. And the way we originally were looking at that was more of a two-family type of development, focusing a little bit more on density. We had looked at an open space development, which would have more clustered the dwellings closer in to create more buffer and open space around the property. We were in before you late last year talking about some possible zoning changes to the RC district to put that into the open space bylaw, but it wasn't the appropriate time for that. So we went back to the drawing board and we landed on a single family conventional A&R project. And as I mentioned, the property does have considerable frontage on Ridge Road. We're able to make the width, the areas, the frontages, all of that work. They are a little funky shape. We are kind of chasing an irregular shaped property that's defined by the water line. It kind of flares out at the street and comes to a kind of a point at the end. But we got it working. But we didn't lose that idea of trying to keep this more rural and try to minimize the impact as best we can. And so that brings us to why we're here tonight. As you know, an A&R plan would simply be coming in. We have frontage on a public road, and we look to sign that. That would assume have driveways for each lot coming out to Ridge Road. And we didn't like the idea of that. We felt it would really depreciate from the frontage, mainly because, as you can see here, this darker green color, this is kind of the existing tree line. One of the areas of the property that isn't really touched is that area that's in green. That's really the I'm going to say pure with a grain of salt, but the woodland area that we wanted to try and preserve. We didn't want to be cutting all those trees down and cutting in driveways. And we felt we could, through a common driveway special permit, create a single point of access, more or less in the same location as the existing driveway. So we really don't change any of the characteristics of the public way and how that functions now to gain access to 3 single-family dwellings. And that's what you're seeing here. This is the landscape plan. I felt this was just a good graphic to show you with some color, kind of the configuration. And what you see here is the common driveway coming right into the middle. And I'll switch back to another plan to show you the lots. But this would be a cul-de-sac turnaround that was engineered in conformance with the regulations in the zoning bylaw, which pull in the regulations from the subdivision. And there's some small residential common driveway standards. Where this is 3 lots, they are recommending a wider driveway coming in at 22 feet. Lori did provide us some very helpful comments, which we're able to take a look at. And I do want to say that we're going to request a waiver to keep this driveway at 20 feet. And I actually wanted to get a little feedback, when we get to the end of this, on your perspective of going to an 18-foot driveway, provided the fire department's okay with that. I would provide gravel shoulders on each side. But what the main point is, we want to keep this from the street line as minimal as possible. We want it to look and feel like a small res driveway. We didn't want a kind of a wide municipal feel to this driveway. And that's been a theme from day one when we stepped foot on this. So as you come into the property, we had Michael Radner from Radner Design Associates put together this plan. He provided a plan with some sugar maple trees being the primary street tree here. He's got a mix of different red oaks, white pines along the frontage here to kind of infill this area that we'll need to do some grading work in there. As you come in to the right, your first dwelling is here. It's a single family dwelling. We have laid everything out for up to a 5-bedroom dwelling. One of the ways we were able to go from, we had two families and a single in our last iteration that we looked at, I believe with you, but definitely with staff. We ended up backing off of that in lieu of just a single but larger dwelling. We felt that it was better for the neighborhood, it fit better, and the values were comparable. And plus, from Damon's benefit and Ben's, we don't have to get another couple of special permits before you. So this kind of simplified the permitting process too. The house in the middle, kind of directly in from the site. This would be the largest home here with basement finishes there. We don't expect, you'll see on the plan, north of 6,000 square feet. This is actually Damon's prospective home. This is, we've been saying for a while, this is where he wants to relocate kind of from the other side of Bartlett Pond to here, keep his family in town. He grew up in town. You might hear from him in a little bit. But this would be his dwelling. And then the third dwelling to the left here, again, all for 5 bedrooms. And they would just have their own kind of driveway off of the common driveway. We did engineer this to comply with the stormwater management standards that are promulgated by Mass DEP and further reinforced under your local regulations. We're going to collect all the stormwater runoff from the driveway and common driveway areas into shallow, we're calling them, you can call them a pocket wetland or a rain garden. So basically, we don't want grassed, green, grassed kind of municipal looking detention ponds or basins in there. We're going to seed these with a couple of native mixes to account for kind of the lower area, which is going to be a little wetter, but still dry. It's an infiltration basin, and then kind of the fringe areas. So you'll see a mix of wildflowers and more native plants growing in these basins. And they're intended to grow over the season. You mow them once annually, and they're going to kind of look like a small wetland area, kind of taken off the small isolated wetland that's to the left here that exists today. The property is serviced by public water. We would bring an 8-inch main. There would be a hydrant. We would extend, there would possibly be a utility pole to get the electric over the street, but then drop it on the site and run conduit out to a transformer, which we located on the plan that would be fed to the 3 different dwellings. We did provide a common driveway easement where this would be a shared driveway. There would be an HOA established that would outline all the details on who's doing what, how, and what they're paying to make sure that that is maintained in perpetuity. I just want to make sure we covered the various plans here. We are in receipt of the comments from DPW. I'm not going to bore you with these. They're technical. We added these notes straight into the plans as part of the water notes. They're mostly relating to water and how they want that done. Connections. We are in receipt of the fire department comments. We did add additional grading and information on how the road is built and angles, degrees. So we fully comply with all of these standards. And then we did receive, of course, Lori's comments, which we've had a chance to go through. And I did want to touch on these quickly in our presentation because a couple of them I do want to talk about tonight. One, I just want to note we did take the comment to create a 40,000 square foot lot footprint entirely within the groundwater overlay district area 2. So you can see this purple line here. We have a portion of the property that's area 1 and the rest of it's area 2. So we did, we are able to adjust this lot here to get to full 40,000 within the area 2, which you'll see on a next iteration of the plans, which I would hope to incorporate any comments tonight from your board as well as those from the Conservation Commission. I did want to ask as well, talking about locating the trees. So I talked about both the easement width and the driveway width. It's our desire to keep that as narrow as possible. I will submit a waiver request letter to go along with that, which you'll see in a subsequent submittal. And then I did want to talk a little bit about the location. So your regulations asked us to locate every tree over 10 inches on the property. And I wanted to get a feel for really the intent in the unique case of this site where it's such, again, the intensity is so high on this. We are expecting to clear the majority of the trees on the perimeter, outside. We are looking closely and working with the Conservation Commission on the work right along the nearest most point to the wetland in the pond. So 25 to 35 feet. We're looking at pulling dwellings back, which we've already gone through that exercise and gotten another 5 to 10 feet on each lot of kind of vegetated zone along the water. We have a lot of trees that are just growing up through around in areas where, we might have to excavate a foundation and there's a tree growing in it. That tree is not going to survive. And on a case, but we might have a garbage dump that we find and we got to chase that and a tree is growing through it. Those trees are going to have to come out. And I think it's going to be one of those exercises. And what I propose to the commission, which I would certainly extend to your board, so we're all on the same page, is that when we get out there and we mobilize and we start and we have our construction sequence and we work out the plan to do the work and actually build this project, there's going to have to be some adjustments in the field. It's going to happen. There's no way we're going to be able to plan it all here. So I didn't see the value in going out and locating individual trees versus putting that effort and energy in a really sound kind of pre-construction process where we go through with the person who's going to be doing the work, the contractor, with the developer, with the engineer, with anybody from the town, conservation, building, whoever you feel wants to be intense, and go through it. And here's how we're going to do it. Mark out the trees and mark out the areas that we're going to try and preserve, or here's what we're going to do in this case, and kind of go through it with a fine-tooth comb. So I did, again, if this was just a natural wooded lot, I would totally get it. Let's figure out what we're dealing with here. But I think in this case, it's going to be, I feel like we're chasing our tail. We're wasting energy and resources doing that. So I wanted to poll you and see, we expect to ask for a waiver from that condition to show all the individual trees. And perhaps we can talk about that tonight. So just to circle back, common driveway special permit, that puts us into site plan, special permit with site plan review. That's what we're here requesting tonight with this petition. And I'm sure I missed something. but we'll flush it out in the Q&A. So I'll, Damon, did you wanna close with any sentiment from your experience here?
I think you covered pretty much everything. Maybe I just want to reiterate that the cost of this cleanup is no joke, and it's going to be pretty expensive and time consuming. But I think, especially based on our neighborhood meeting and previous meetings with the planning board, that everybody kind of agrees that this place really needs to be cleaned up. So I think we found a pathway to do it, and that's what we're going for.
So
Okay,
with that, Madam Chair, I will turn it back to you.
great. So what would actually be helpful, I know you covered a lot of different things, but it was somewhat out of order. I wouldn't mind if we actually went through the planning director's questions, comments, and recommendations, and just let the board know the status of each one. So it wasn't clear to me, especially with number one, you walked through it a little bit, and a couple others. So, and if it's just something you're coming back next time, that's okay. But I just want to make sure the board understands your response to each one of these, whether it's a next time or something you fixed this time around, and then we can kind of all follow along.
Yeah, I'm happy to go through each one. Absolutely. Do you want me to walk through those? Do you want to take the lead?
No, go ahead. So no, we can just go right in order. And if the board has other questions, if you want to stop at a certain one, we'll just stop and feel free to ask a question. But I think
Sure.
that may be the most helpful way. Okay, so
Perfect.
if you could cover again the first starting with number one there.
Yeah, yep, fair enough. So comment one is talking about, it's a zoning thing, right? So we have on the property, the groundwater overlay district, it is split by area 1 and area 2. And that area, that divide happens on this line. I'm gonna try to, my computer doesn't like doing the digital stuff when we're on Zoom. But you can see I'm moving my cursor here.
Mhm.
So what that comment is asking is on this particular lot, we want to make sure we have 40,000 to meet the minimum lot area for single family use in the groundwater 2 on outside of that groundwater 1. So they didn't want us taking credit for any of the area 1 land as part of the total lot area. So we did adjust that. And again, I'm talking about this conceptually. We've done the work, but I was not going to submit a set of plans the day of or the day before a hearing. I didn't want to do that to you guys. I wanted to take time and make sure we vetted it, possibly talk to Lori too, make sure we're on the same page. But what we're going to do to address that is we're going to extend basically the water frontage for lot, I apologize, I think it's lot 3 on the right. I don't have that up in front of me. But we're going to extend kind of this area along Bartlett Pond to get this up to 40,000 square feet. And then as part of the HOA, they'll square away probably all the water rights to the various lots and how that's all going to work out. So we do have a workaround on that. It doesn't affect, again, the lot width and all the geometric requirements really come from the street back up through the house. So the 100 feet and the frontage. So this is just moving the rear yard in a little closer. Are there any questions on that one?
Questions from the board? Okay, so it sounds like you're coming back with new plans for that.
Yep.
Okay.
So this one here on the standards. So this is talking about, this is referring actually to another set of standards, which is, it's the Selectmen's roadway construction standards. So the zoning bylaw refers to the subdivision regs, and subdivision regs refer to the Selectmen's regs. And that's where we find this piece here. So most of this is technical. It's on the cross section of the common driveway. We had addressed this already. We actually beefed it up a little bit following this. I feel we had met all the construction requirements already. The main one in here is the width. And this is where I talked about the Selectmen standards call for a 22-foot wide road. And, you know, we're at 22 feet. It's starting to feel like a subdivision road. And we really don't feel that's in the best interest of the public, of the neighborhood, or the people that would eventually live here. It's 3 single-family homes. There's no sightline issues. The fire truck works perfectly well on 20 feet. I actually wanted to entertain the idea of 18 feet. It's something I wanted to talk to staff about first, but we have in the plans right now 20 feet. And what this concludes with is if we don't want to do this, ask for the waiver. So we anticipate asking for this waiver to go to 20 feet. And this would be a good stopping point to talk to you about how you feel about that. Because this is, again, I believe and feel strongly we meet the state fire marshal's code for emergency access. I provided a swept path fire truck analysis, which shows the truck driving around this cul-de-sac. It works fine. We meet code. This is more of one of aesthetic. And I will say I am passionate for many reasons to minimizing our footprint, especially with pavement wherever we can. So we do try to be creative and find ways where we can shave and slice and keep it as minimal as possible. And I will say too, as part of this revision, we are further polishing that to even going out into the house lots.
Okay, hold on, I see Bob here. Bob, did you have something to add?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to chime in here. I recommend you confer with the fire chief regarding the width. I don't know if 18 feet is going to be allowed. And you also state that you did the modeling with the fire truck. And again, I'm not a fire department representative, but I'm just kind of looking out for their interests. You've got a couple of sharp bends. If you come up off of the main driveway, continue counterclockwise around the circle, and if you pull into the first driveway, is the truck going to be able to make that bend? And also, if you were to pull into, again, going counterclockwise around the circle, and you were to pull into the driveway that's on the westerly side, is that inside corner too tight? So I would recommend, wherever you wind up with a driveway width, you confer with the fire chief, because if my memory's any good, 18 feet isn't allowed. But I don't want to preach out of school here.
Sure thing. Yeah, and happy through the chair, happy to have that conversation. I think it would be helpful and productive. When we do 18 feet, we still provide 20 feet of structurally cleared road. We would do 18 feet of pavement, a 1 foot gravel shoulder on each side, which is going to be there anyways, because there's no curb on this one. So that forms our 20 feet of stable course so they can put the riggers out. And I can talk to them as well about a fire truck pulling into driveways. I don't really ever see a fire truck pulling into a res driveway. They stop along the frontage. So we can talk about that too. But I'll confer with the fire department on that. I drew in red here just so you could see this. So what puts us into the 22 feet versus the 20 is by having this third driveway. So if we were to come in with a separate driveway for this lot and do a 2-lot common driveway for these, we could also keep 18, the 20, it's actually allowed to be 18 feet per the code, but let's say 20 feet. We did not feel another curb cut was in the best interest of the public. So that's what we're weighing. We're trying to minimize this. I guess if we did the second driveway, we would meet it with our current design, but because we added the third driveway, it bumps us up to the 22 foot width. So.
Okay, so to clarify then, if you have just one driveway, it only needs to be 18 feet. I'm sorry, if you had like 2 houses on the common driveway and then one separate driveway, they only have to be 18 feet.
Correct. And the third lot wouldn't even be part of this. It would just be these 2 on the left. This would just be a simple A&R lot.
Okay. And then I guess Laurie or Bob, do you see that as well, that would be the case?
I'm sorry?
Bob, you thought you weren't sure about the 18. Is that something that sounds right to you as well, that you would only need 18 feet if you only had 2 houses on the common drive?
Well, that's, I usually don't get into that. My main concern is the width and accessibility for the fire apparatus. That usually, the width of the driveway is, whatever Laurie wrote, I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Yep.
Laurie, do you know anything about the other?
There are different driveway standards for 2 homes versus 3 homes. So the 3 homes is the stricter driveway width. Personally, I would recommend going with the 20 foot. I actually would be okay with the 18 feet, but I'd prefer 2 foot shoulders on either side.
Yep.
the 20 feet, I think, is more than adequate for what is proposed here. And from my experience, fire chiefs seem to be satisfied with a 20-foot roadway width. I would prefer a common driveway that handles all 3 single-family homes versus the 2 different driveway configuration. And certainly when you're dealing with a situation where you have an ecologically sensitive parcel, so of course, this is a peninsula that juts into a pond, you have wetlands. If you minimize the driveway width, then you're going to minimize the amount of disturbance, and you're also going to minimize the need for stormwater mitigation. So in my experience, less is more.
Okay. Any questions or thoughts from board members on this one? Okay, do you want to go on to the next one?
Sure. I really appreciate everybody's time going through these tonight. It's really helpful, and we don't often get this opportunity. The next one, comment 3, talks about the easement that follows along the driveway. I guess this may be a non-issue at the end of the day, but I just wanted to clarify that we're not proposing a right-of-way. We're proposing a common driveway, which is an easement, and we would be inclined to follow what the bylaws talks about on the common driveway, which is you offset, I believe, I can't remember, it's 3 or 4 feet, but you basically take the width of the driveway and you offset that rather than plopping a 33-foot right away. And I just want to make sure there's not a misperception here between common driveway and road. It's not a road. So we'd be asking for a waiver on this as well. Again, we feel it's in the public interest to keep it as minimal as possible.
Okay, Lori, did you want to clarify? Did you mean something different by this one, or?
No, it said in the regulations a 33-foot wide right-of-way width. They're proposing 28 feet wide easement width. As long as that is sufficiently wide to accommodate the services that go along. So of course you're proposing the water main. I don't know if it's going to be serviced by gas. Obviously the underground utilities as well, the telephone cable, electric, street trees generally would be outside of the easement. So whatever, if 28 feet is sufficient, then I would go with the 28 feet.
Okay. And just so the board can see, that's the current easement. The only place it's narrower is just this throat. If push came to shove, if I need to widen this, we can get there. I don't think it's a huge deal, but again, it's just, it's the same thing, you know, just less is more. All this serves to do is kind of further encumber the various lots. Maybe it has an impact, maybe it doesn't, but you know, anytime I've dealt with easements, the smaller they are, the better. So, but this does cover, you can see it covers the hydrant, it covers the common transformer, it covers the services that go out to each dwelling. I do agree with another comment, which we'll get to, is extending this out to cover the drainage outfall. So we've already made that adjustment. So it's a pretty big easement area, as you can see.
Mm-hmm.
So I think one way or the other, we can get it covered. I was going to make the waiver request. And I'll leave that one to you guys. I don't know if we care.
Okay.
This is just providing a cross section. We've put that together. That's fine. That's a technical. 5, again, technical. I believe we had we have the standards for a road. The profile, again, sorry, Lori, go ahead.
I am going to underscore my preference. I was kind of surprised. Of course, I'm new to Northborough, but I was surprised that the standard was 3 inches of compacted thickness. instead of the 4 inches, which is the standard that most communities have. It's the Mass DOT standard. So is that something that you folks are willing to do just on the common driveway section?
I
the
had it
4
on all the
inches?
drive. No, I had it on that. We had that. It was a little confusing because I had the regular driveway, which I did go flat, shallower, and the common driveway in the same detail. I broke that out, but we did have the 4 inches. I had 1.5 on 2.5.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't understand that from that.
It was a
drawing
little,
that
it was a
you
little
put.
confusing how we drew it up.
Okay.
Um,
As
but
long as
it-
it's the 4 inches, that's great.
Yep, not an issue. And I fully agree. You really can't even pave 1 inch. I don't know how viable that is, but you see it. The driveway profile, I didn't want to go through the effort of creating another plan sheet for profile. What we did do was we added a whole bunch more spot grading along this whole common driveway. It's a very short road. And I'm going to spend, a couple days putting together a profile and another plan. It's a lot of additional work. And this one, I didn't feel it rose the need. This won't be a conventional build where they plug in a profile and they build it off of that. They're going to plug all the spot grades into a GPS, and they're going to lay this out and build it more like I guess it's going to get built more like a parking lot than it will a road, because it's so small. When we have linear construction, that's when a profile, I would agree, is definitely warranted. I don't know if the board has an opinion on the need to see that or not.
So by what you've done, are you able to show compliance with the maximum and minimum grading requirements?
100%. Yep. And I put the grades on there too. The minimum, maximum grades are on the plan.
Okay, great.
Yep.
I don't mean any other, I can't see everybody at the same time. So if you have a question, anything there? Nope. Okay.
7 was just, it was a crossing detail for, it said sewer. We had it on there because we do cross over a drainage culvert. I got rid of it. It's really, it was overkill. And so we got rid of that. The water main is now appearing on the roadway cross section, which we're adding. We added snow storage area to the abbreviations. Comment 9, Lori's recommending a one-way sign. We are opposed to that. We feel that goes against the rural character we're trying to achieve here. We don't feel the 3 lots rises to the need of having that. I think it's going to be common, familiar, and it's, people are going to use it very, very efficiently without the need for that.
Okay.
Comment 10, we talked about this with the trees. I'll pause here, I guess, because I already presented on our position on the trees. This is quite an extensive amount of work. There's risk to my survey crew because of the open pits, and frankly, I feel like we're swimming upstream trying to do this. But
Okay. All right, so then let's stop there for a second. First, our planning board members, do they feel one way or the other about the one-way sign on the cul-de-sac?
I actually had thought that might not be a bad idea. I can understand where you're coming from, that, it does sort of take away from a little bit of the character, but that house on the left, I can certainly see people cutting right around on the other side of the circle. It seems like it has an odd zigzaggy approach to it, the way the driveway is shaped, and I could certainly see saying, I'm just going to go straight across that way.
so they do on a common driveway.
Yeah.
And I lived on a public road with exactly this situation that had a one-way sign for 15 years, and I still went the quickest way. The sign's
Okay.
not going to deter that, right?
Okay.
So that was my, I guess I'm a rebel at heart. But it was just, I live here, so I know it. I
Mhm.
think anybody that doesn't mail delivery, things like that, they're going to be inclined. I saw anybody that didn't live in my neighborhood. Everybody went the conventional way because that's how we're kind of programmed to drive. So it's one of those things. I don't see an imminent threat to public safety here because it's a small private driveway.
Mhm.
That's all. I mean,
Okay.
if we did, we could put maybe a small ground sign if that would make the board feel better and staff. I think we're opposed to like the conventional white and black commercial signage.
Yeah, and I can understand that. You don't want to live with that. You want to live in a neighborhood that doesn't really scream neighborhood when you've got signs and painted arrows all over.
Right.
Are there any other thoughts on that or comments? Can't see. Okay. Regarding so you'd be looking for a waiver for the trees.
Correct.
Okay, thoughts on the waiver for trees?
You mentioned that you'd go out with staff and mark some of the trees you were gonna keep, so you'd do a walkthrough and not label all of the 10-inch trees, but there might be some big ones that you plan on keeping.
So a couple of things just to get get this developed into compliance with current regulations. We talked about stormwater. We also have septic systems, and we have a rapidly draining soil. So we have to have 5 feet of separation of water table. And then we typically have about a 3 to 4 foot section above that. So you're talking about 8 to 9 feet from water to finished grade for the septic systems to comply with Title V. The existing cesspools are in the water table. That's why they don't allow those, and they're trying to get rid of them everywhere. So this is an improvement, but we do have to fill and bring the grade of the land up. So as you come into this, the road's actually going to come down a little bit from the street, but it's still on the property to bring this up. So anything that's growing in kind of the light green area, there could be some trees in the fringe, but you can see right here, there's a dwelling right here. So even getting into excavate and remove that dwelling, if there's a tree growing on the corner, typically my rule of thumb when we're looking at, can we save the tree or not save the tree? Are we going to impact the roots by more than 10% or the canopy by more than 10%? Because usually if you're going to go over that for most species, maybe you can get away with 15, but it's going to kill the tree. So we're going to run into that throughout this entire property. So we're expecting to come in, and we are expecting to kind of clear cut this green area to get that. And the dark green is where we're going to put a lot of our energy into marking out. And through the Conservation Commission, we've actually developed a construction sequence specifically for how we're going to approach this inner 25-foot zone, which we are going to put a lot of effort into preserving. You can see, here's another dwelling, here's a dwelling, here's a dwelling, there's sheds. I didn't even mark this one out. We're hoping we can get in and pull that one out there. It doesn't have a foundation. But part of that sequencing is we mark out the limit of work. So we know where the pond is, we know where the edge of the wetland is. We know where our 25 is. We're going to prep everything. We're going to mark out trees to be saved. We're going to mark out trees that are going to be removed. We're going to go over kind of our means methods of really not bringing any equipment into this zone. We want to minimize that, hand pick as much as we can, only track, in and out of here vertically. Don't be coming in and turning and scouring and ripping up, and having materials on hand such as compost, loam to kind of fill in and seed any disturbed areas and get that stabilized as soon as possible. So that the first thing that you're going to see happening is the site being cleared and prepped. We do this perimeter work first. We set the limit of work once that's done, and then we work from the inside back out. And so we never really go back into that wooded area again. That's kind of it. Other than, if they need to maintain something or fix something, they'll go in and do that. So you'll see that in the next iteration. And I think there's got to be communication on this. And I like having that right on the plan. So the contractors bidding on it know it.
I just have a quick question. You mentioned septics. Have you been in front of the Board of Health yet?
We haven't done that yet. We've done, we do have to get into test pits. Officially, we've done our own kind of unofficial test pits, but it is coarse sand and gravel. I kind of wish it was a little slower draining, but the water table was coincident with Bartlett Pond because it's such a rapidly draining soil. So we didn't have any concerns with this particular. I will say, and her name slips my mind, we had a meeting earlier. I think Kristen was there. I can't remember if it might have been a staff meeting, but we did talk about this. It's on their radar to get this property cleaned up.
I know in the past that they have to approve how many bedrooms.
Correct.
So I didn't know if 15 bedrooms on that property had been approved already.
We feel we have the space in conformance with we provided, so for example, Northborough adds a 25 setback increase from 10 to sidelines. So we have this all mapped out, everything's, so we have done designs on these already. What you're seeing on the plan is a design for a 5-bedroom home. So we feel that it would be a next step in the process. So it would be kind of coincident with the building designs and the septic system. We usually do that in the next step.
Okay, so if the septic system's only allowed 4 per building, you just scale it back a little?
If it ends up being 4, it ends up being 4. That's right. Yep. We plan worst case with 5 bedrooms. We're not, we may not get there on all 3 of these.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so to help the applicant here, would we entertain a waiver for the showing the trees over 10 inches in diameter, or is that something we still want to see? Thoughts on that?
I think the property is so, the property is so, needs so much work that I don't see a lot of these trees being saved.
No
Okay.
matter who's doing what.
Right.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate, number one, you guys willing to come in and do this work to make this property right. But number two, the fact that you are trying to keep as many of the trees on the outside of the property as you can. I think once you get into the roots of some of these trees, yeah, you're going to be pulling up pretty much all the dirt that's in that entire area.
Mhm.
Okay, so you'd be open to a waiver on that one?
Yep.
Okay,
So would I.
Amy
Yep,
and Millie?
Yep, absolutely.
All right, so just by informal poll, I think the board's open to a waiver for that.
Understood. That's plenty enough. I appreciate that.
Okay,
Moving along, comment 11, we have Mike Radner looking at some, we do have a seed planting for the basins now. We're going to look at other plantings. Lori provided some examples of things she liked. So he's looking at that. You'll see that in the next iteration. I want to talk a little bit about streetlights. This again gets back to the rural character. We really don't want 12-foot LED lights. Lights will be at the driveways. I think I did see another comment here that they did want a name for the driveway. So I can see potentially a kind of a monument type sign, just kind of identifying it. You see with the Fieldstone, it's kind of on the ground with maybe a couple of uplights on that. But we really didn't want street lights. The homes are going to have their residential nature lights. There's probably going to be a small 6-foot sconce, along maybe some small bollard stuff, maybe some uplighting. I think there's going to be plenty of lights. It's just small. We want it to be darker. It's, at night, let them focus the light around the used part of the property where they need it. So I guess we were kind of opposed to putting in common lights.
okay, so I have actually a different, before you getting to lights, I have the installation of shade trees of a minimum of 2 inches diameter at 50-foot intervals along the common driveway. It looks like you just have a different version. Oh, so you already have that.
Yep, we got that.
Okay.
It's 150 feet. We have 2, 4, 6, 8 trees.
Oh, okay, great. And then you said you're submitting the landscaping plan. No, we already got that, the landscape.
You have this. Yep. Yep. And we're also infilling where we have to do temporary grading work, and we will lose some trees in the frontage. If you notice here, we're infilling with some evergreens here. So there's 9 eastern white pines. And you can see we're infilling around the homes we have oak trees, eastern white pines coming throughout. There's another oak. There's another red maple feature tree. So the sugar maples are awesome. Those will be great features here.
Okay, all right. I didn't mean to break your stride with the lights. Okay, so you don't want to do the lights.
We would prefer not to do the lights.
Okay. Are there ways you could do the lights like they have the, the night, what are they called? The lights that we wanted in certain wooded areas,
Dark skies.
the dark sky lights. Are there lights that are sort of reach your goal, but also reach the goals of safety and security, where it's not like your traditional bright street light, but just something there that lights it up?
I think what I talked about with if we're gonna put a sign, if we're gonna name this and put a sign, I think it's gonna be a little bit more tasteful and subtle in nature and more of a small pedestal thing, not a conventional. We'll have to talk to the fire department about that too. And I think I can see some uplighting on that.
Mhm.
That can be solar to illuminate that. The applicant has no interest in bringing illumination to the road and the asphalt. Again, we want to focus around the dwellings themselves, keep the rest of it, we want dark sky. Even the dark sky compliant do cast light that affect what's around it. So you get the pond, you got the wetlands, you got, we want to try to minimize that. We want to experience the property for what it is.
Mhm. Okay, any board thoughts on that? Oh, hold on, did I see somebody? No, oh, Laurie.
I am concerned about the hydrant. So you're gonna have a hydrant within the project. I know a lot of, most residential lighting, they don't put their light on that's over by the street. That's completely voluntary. So you're proposing a hydrant right over by the roadway. And if it's completely dark, I'm just a little bit concerned about the fire trucks finding the hydrant without any sort of lighting whatsoever.
Yeah, let me talk to Damon and Ben a little bit and see if we can develop because usually you're going to have a small pedestal light at the driveways here. So let me talk to them a little bit about, and I'll talk to Mike Radner too. Maybe on each side of this we can put our small res light here and then here to.
But that's not helpful if they're not on. So the street lights automatically go on, so they'll definitely be on.
Well,
whereas residential lighting, it requires the resident to actually flick the switch, and a lot of times they don't.
Let me talk to them about some options. We understand the concern. They heard it. Let us look at that.
Okay, any board thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was going to bring up the same thought that Lori just did, that, at least by the hydrant, especially if, something, if the fire department needed to get to that west side house, right? And so now they've got to cross all the way across to be able to get to that hydrant. And, that might be a bit of a trek without any lighting.
Okay.
Okay, I hear you.
Okay.
We talked about the easement already. 13.
Okay.
14, concrete monuments. I guess my position on this is we don't feel that's necessary. Again, it's not a roadway. It's a small residential common driveway with a homeowners association. The easement's memorialized on a plan. We will have the lot corners staked out, which we're required to do per the survey code, and they can locate the easement, but the easement's going to exist on paper, and nobody's ever going to look at that again. So I guess we felt this was unnecessary, and the concrete monuments just end up being something that the lawnmowers are just going to constantly hit. So they're kind of a nuisance.
Lori, you have something here?
In my experience, if there is no monumentation for easements, it's very common for people to assume that they're part of their property, put all sorts of things in there, sheds, swing sets, swimming pools, and then the access might be lost for maintenance.
I fully agree on roads. Fully agree. Have you ever been part of an HOA? Because we sneeze outside of the regulations, and a neighbor is usually going to say something. So I find the HOAs are usually much more aware of it. In this case,
Well, I do have to say, Scott, we've had HOAs get in fights as well and try to come in front of the planning board with disagreements and all sorts of stuff that we have trouble untangling. So I'm not sure that HOAs always take care of their own business.
Plus also, they won't know where the line is either. So if it's not marked with some sort of monumentation, if you want to ask for an alternative type of monumentation, like a pipe, then I'd be fine with that. But some sort of monumentation that isn't a wooden stick that is going to be easily moved, so that everybody understands where the easement is and that they need to stay out of it.
okay, I'll talk to the applicant about that. We'll come up with something.
Okay.
15, we talked about there's going to be an HOA. My only request on this is the comment here is requesting it to be recorded prior to issuance of building permits. It's my experience that oftentimes these are not done until the first home is about to be sold or built. So the prior to building permit presents an issue. I would request that this be prior to occupancy, so that the town does not lose any leverage. They can ensure it gets done, but we ensure that the houses and everything is where it's supposed to be, and the HOA matches that.
I'm fine with that.
Does that make sense? Okay.
Prior to occupancy of the first house?
Sure, first house.
Okay.
You're not going to want it there for the second one. First house, yep. And that's good. That's in the benefit of the applicant too, to get that recorded before they close. They want that done. I see often where they are done before building permit and then stuff changes during construction. And now I got to file another HOA. So it becomes kind of a nightmare. 16, we have no issues with. If they need to bond a portion of the common driveway is going to be built. So if they need to get in similar to a subdivision road and bond, like for example, finished coated pavement won't be done. Trees, finished landscaping probably won't be done, and they're going to want to start the homes. Usually come back and do those at the very end. That's perfectly normal language. So we're good with that. I'm going to skip to 18 and say, you got me, Lori. We'll change that. We're not Salem. I always leave one of those in there for you.
I do that too on occasion. So
Was that?
it just made me snicker a little bit.
Yeah.
And then 17, my question on this one is GL 40A outlines statutory timelines for special permits and site plan, and they're memorialized typically at a certain point of executing the site plan and special permit. I guess I don't want to be treated any differently than any other person receiving similar types of permits. So I guess I just want a little more understanding. If the bylaw says 3 years period, then we're good with that. If it's silent or follows 40A, I want to stay with what everybody else is subject to.
So 3 years is the typical time frame for a special permit. I figured because it was 3 homes, that 3 years would be plenty of time to build out this project. But if you need more time, if you need 4 years, then I'm fine with that. I just like to put a time frame within the decision, so that it just kind of keeps people moving.
Does that follow the statute though? And I'll tell you my concern. So we have a 3-year timeline on an order of conditions from the Concom, but we, under the statute, can go back in and request extensions up to 6 years on that. And that's by right. I've run situations where they kind of a timeline like this is put into a permit decision, but then we're not able to extend it. And then my other question is, would this still follow the same 48 statute where once we initiate the work and the project is underway, the permit is memorialized? So the timeline disappears at that point.
No, I definitely want a construction deadline. So what would typically happen is like in a subdivision. So you could come in and you could request an extension of the construction deadline. So that would be a public hearing before the planning board. And that would be the only issue that would be discussed. So they wouldn't discuss anything else about the design, just whether or not you folks should get an extension of the construction deadline. So it would be not a period of time to start construction. It would be a period of time to complete construction.
Understood. So I would feel comfortable telling the applicant that it's okay as long as the language is in there that covers the extension process.
Okay.
So we can do that.
Sure. Yep, absolutely.
In these days, with the instability with the market, materials, labor, everything,
Makes sense.
I'll still give people schedules, but my fingers are crossed behind my back because we haven't seen one met in a long time. So,
Yeah.
Anybody try to get garage doors lately?
Yeah, the frustrating thing is when there's no deadline and then we're talking 20 years from now over a 3-lot common driveway. That's a bit ridiculous. So a provision like this will at least keep people moving, hopefully.
No, I agree.
I agree. All right. That's it. That's for those. We have a revised set of plans coming at you. Responses to all this. I have a conversation to be had with the fire department. Anything else, Madam Chair?
Any further questions or comments from board members?
I have a couple of questions on the summary that you provided for us. And I don't know how to pull pieces of paper up on the on the computer. It's the one that you had that's got your letterhead on it, the Moran Cambria group. Really the body of the first paragraph talks about what the overall project is. And it mentions something called a land disturbance permit. Is that related to the trees? Is that related to the cleanup? Is that related to, what is that related to?
So if you alter, I can't remember what the threshold is, we trigger it. It comes after this process. We have been in correspondence with Fred Litchfield on that. It is, we're doing all the technical heavy lifting right now. That ultimately then becomes kind of an administrative piece as a fee. The town's in compliance with their, I suspect, although I'm not sure, but this is similar to stormwater permits where we're just making sure the project's going to be built and executed properly. And in particular, that we're not importing, exporting, and creating a kind of a dirt operation, a dirt business out of this.
And
So that would be our earthworks permit, right, Lori?
Yeah.
Is that what he's talking about?
I believe so. There is also a section in the zoning bylaw that talks about land disturbance. It's under the development regulations.
Yeah.
Okay.
If over 20,000 square feet.
Right.
Okay, interesting. Did not know that.
So this isn't our last stop.
Other
I guess-
questions?
I had a couple. I guess I have a couple for Fred and he's not here tonight. I didn't know if it met everything it needed to meet for the floodplain. Is the floodplain area just on the far left? Is it that little piece?
Yeah, we're not in the floodplain, so that's that. See this blue line?
Yep.
That kind of circles. It's more or less coincident with the water line. It doesn't really come into the property or past the wetlands, so we are not working within the floodplain.
Okay. And I was just wondering, Lori, since it's on the pond, Are there any special salts or fertilizers that are used? I don't know if you know, or if anyone knows, or because it's so close to the water.
We could always put in a condition, especially for the driveways, saying they can't use the sodium-based de-icer. If you want.
Yeah, if they're okay with that, because that's right. The driveway probably borders the groundwater one or goes through it.
I have a question, Scott. Has this property ever been tested for hazardous or contaminated waste?
So we've done an initial phase one, and it's a residential use. So you can see what's on the ground. This is one of those situations where there are protocols for how we clean this up, and we have to follow those. They will have a licensed site professional as part of that team, and they follow the protocols. I can't tell you what's there. We aren't sure yet, other than it's highly unlikely there's something that is catastrophic that's going to stop it. But there's rules for those too. And this is where we talk about the cost. There's what we can see, and there's what we're going to find when we start getting into it.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
we're planning for a worst case scenario.
Okay. All right. I also just had some questions on, it could be technical, but some of the directives that you're giving us under sections to look at for approval they don't seem to match up with things or places that I have in my zoning book. It talks about, I'm sorry, Lori, was that you?
No, go ahead. It was me, but go ahead, Millie.
And again, really, it's the first paragraph in your presentation to us, but it talks about common driveway special permit under section 7-10-020. And then that refers to something called 10-36-130, which we have no idea what that is, or at least I don't. So how would I evaluate that?
I think you're going to go to the, not your zoning bylaws, but the subdivision rules and regs.
Okay, didn't see
That's
that
where
part.
common driveways are.
It's tricky.
Okay,
And I missed the selectmen's regulations too, so I'll have commentary on that in the next submission.
okay. And then the last one that I have a question on is, and it might be the same thing, I'm looking in the wrong area, but to grant a common driveway special permit, the board is asked to evaluate criteria under section 7-03010C. And when I look that up, that goes to foundation certification in the new zoning book. Am I looking in the wrong zoning book, maybe an older one? Should I be?
What was the reference again, Millie, that you mentioned?
7-03-010C under building permit. In the new book, I come up under foundation certification.
Where are you seeing it in the application?
I can show you. I don't know. I'm not very good with that screen.
Are you still on the Maureen Cameron paper?
Yeah,
This-
it's really at the very bottom.
I think it's supposed to be 7-03-040C. That's the special permit criteria.
I thought it might be supposed to be that, but I wanted to double check.
I'll double check that. If you'd like me, I can coordinate with Lori on going through that. I am using the version of the zoning that appears on the town webpage. I just want to make sure also that I have the correct one.
That
Right,
is the
but
correct one.
I
Yeah.
just want to know what we're supposed to evaluate under the criteria of that, of which section. Okay, that would make more sense.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Millie?
Yeah, that's it for me. Just trying to figure out where we're supposed to be evaluating and where the, where it falls, yeah.
I see it here. And then he goes through the various criteria about substantial harmony. So I'm pretty sure that's a typo. It's supposed to be the 040C.
Okay,
Because then you'll see that the 1 through 7 match.
exactly. And that's kind of what I was trying to follow through on.
Okay, other questions? Any questions from staff? Okay, this is a public hearing. I will open up for public comments. If there's anybody in the audience that would like to make a comment, please raise your hand. Okay, we have one. Looks like Carter Brannon. Hi, Carter. Can you hear me okay? Oh, go right ahead, Carter. Do you have a comment? Just stay here. I'm name and address.
This is Carter Brannon, 22 Sherlin Drive. Yeah, I just had a few kind of comments or questions. I was looking through with the application narrative that's on the town website. And it's on page 4. It says that there are no historic structures on the property. I mean, I could be wrong about this, but the existing dwellings are quite old, and I think some of them might be more than 100 years old. And not that my understanding is the site's probably not safe that those would be retained in a realistic way, but I mean, just that the documents say that there are no historic structures on the property. I mean, I don't know who would be doing this, but it would have, I think, liked to have some kind of record or report about the history of, I mean, it's 8 dwellings. It's like an entire neighborhood that has been around for several decades that I'm even personally kind of curious about what this is, or even just for future genealogical research of who lived on this property in the past. Then another kind of comment of mine, which I know this has been talking about, this has been going on for a long time, talking about this site, but it is, the site's being reduced from 8 dwellings to 3. And given that, you know, Massachusetts is kind of having a housing supply issue, and I understand it probably isn't possible for this site, but it's just something that even that the town's planning should be noting, that we are reducing the number of dwellings, and we should be looking at maybe not doing that in general. And then just another, and also I mean, you're taking very small dwellings and building quite large houses that would be less affordable, and affordable housing is an issue in the town that should be being addressed as a whole town-wide issue, not just this site. And also in the kind of discussions at this meeting, there's talk about kind of like the driveway widths and all this other stuff, and whether they're necessary or not. And if it's true that, you know, it's safe for the fire department and anything else that's needed in the future, would the town maybe want to look at their rules about this kind of stuff and maybe revise them? Because Scott's kind of talking about how he's trying to minimize the impact to the site, which, at least in my opinion, seems like it should be standard practice for all development.
Okay, great. So thanks for the comments. I'm going to try to go through a little bit. So Scott, any insight on the historical dwellings? We had nothing there to your knowledge?
There's nothing to my knowledge. But the state of the dwellings leads me to believe that they're not in any condition to be salvaged.
Oh,
But I see Mr. Federico has his hand
Oh, I
up.
do,
He
yeah.
probably knows more than me.
Bob,
Yeah, whenever I get a application for demolition, the first thing I do is I look for, as best I can, the age of the buildings. If they're over 100 years old, I have to send them to the historical committee for a review, no matter their historical significance. Okay, they may, and I will write a letter saying these things are so dilapidated and they're essentially shacks that I don't recommend anybody going in to try to even look at them. So basically I would hold the permit, the building permit, send it to historical, they would do their due diligence. And I don't mean to speak for that particular board, but I don't think they're gonna have a problem with taking these down.
got it. Okay, and then Carter, you made a couple of good comments about size and affordability and all that. The applicant at one point did come to the board with a different plan that had a bit more housing. It just was complicated with our zoning. It wasn't allowed and we would have had to create new bylaws. But your point is a good one about reviewing some of our rules and regs to make sure I think even Laurie, you mentioned throughout here, there was a 4 inches of pavement or something of the sort that we might be a little behind on. So it's a point well taken. But so thank you, Carter.
Thank you.
Okay, I have another hand up here. David Code. Hi, David.
Hi, how are you? David Code from 113 Maple Lane. I live on Bartlett Pond. I just had a couple of questions. One question is, when was the last time any of these shacks were inhabited? Because I think that no one's lived there for at least 5 to 10 years. And then secondly, because there's been no habitation by any legal residents, certainly the property's in a state of disrepair. It's been in a state of disrepair for over 20 years. And I think that's a health department issue and that there's been lack of enforcement. But I think that it's not Fallujah there. I've been in there, I've seen it. There are things that need cleaned up. And I think that we need to do a realistic assessment what the true scale of that effort is. I also think that we look at views from the pond. There's this that's very trees, and look from my house, can't just because wooding is so dense. 20 feet, no, and it should be to take because this thing that should have.
So David, you're breaking up for me a little bit. Can everybody else hear David okay? Or is he breaking up?
No, I can't hear him.
I can't hear him either.
Living for a long time.
So David, you were really breaking up for your second point. I heard your first one okay. Let's see, I don't know, do you want to try just make that second piece just one more time? The first part was fine, is you started to really break up at the second point. You said your view, I heard all the way up to the view from the pond. Oops, did we lose you? Oh, no. We lost him. David, are you still there?
It looks like he doesn't have a microphone anymore. You might need to give him permission to talk again.
So I did do allow to talk. Let's see, what do I do? All right, hold on. I'm gonna promote him for a second. See if that helps. Are you there, David? No. Okay, I think. So let's see, David, if you can hear me, we couldn't hear your second point really well. If you want to try to come back on, you're welcome to do that. Or if you want to send an email with those points to the board, and we'll have to continue this hearing anyway. So we'll have the opportunity to read that. I don't want to miss your comments, but it was really difficult to hear that second point. I'm going to put your hand down, and if you'd want to try again, just raise it again. And I don't know if Jim, do you mind putting his hand down? I don't know. Am I co-host tonight? I can't tell. It's not working.
Yeah, I believe I made you co-host. Yep. So you are. So you would just go into the more option, and then there's a lower hand. So
I did. It didn't work.
Yeah. So it's not moving. I'm assuming what's happening is due to his connection, it's causing something weird to happen. So he may not likely be able to even hear us right now.
Okay. All right. So I missed that second point for David, but the first point was, do we know how long the occupants, it's been vacated there? Do we know that by any chance? How long that's been deserted, abandoned? Okay, we don't know. All right, so we don't have that. Oh, actually we do. Damon, you know? Oops, you're on mute though. Oops, Damon, do you know?
Yeah, when we had this under agreement years ago, a relative of the owner was living in one of the buildings, and she moved out. Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, summer of 2019.
That's my recollection, although I didn't see that directly, but we were kind of waiting on getting and doing surveys for a little while, waiting for her to move out.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, I have one more hand here, Lisa Maselli. Hi, Lisa.
Hi there. I just wanted to say that I think that this is kind of a nice product that we're seeing tonight, and working with an interesting and maybe a difficult site, but working within what the site I think is more pleasant as how we have it now than making a bunch of small houses or overstuffing it. I think that they've done a great job and working with the new planner and just putting a lot of effort and energy into this. And I want to tip my hat to it. So that's my comment.
Great, thank you. All right, it looks like no further comments. I'm gonna lower here. Any other comments? Okay, great. So with that, any other board comments or questions based on what we've?
Looks like Damon's hand is up, but I don't know if that's from before.
Oh, Damon, do you have something else, or is that just from before?
Sorry, that was from before.
Okay, we'll just lower that. There we go. Okay. Okay. Any other board questions or comments? All right, great. So it sounds like for, and you can actually stop sharing if you, who are we sharing? Scott sharing, if you want to stop sharing for a second. Okay, great. So it looks like we have, we went through the list here. It sounds like you're coming back with plans. In order to do what you need to do you need to meet with the Board of Health and get the septic before coming back? Does that happen beforehand, Lori, the Board of Health, or not necessarily?
Not necessarily. They can go afterwards.
But even if the Board of Health, the septic system only allows for, I guess it doesn't matter how many bedrooms to us necessarily, does it?
Yeah, because the planning board doesn't approve the single family homes.
Right.
The planning board has no jurisdiction. So generally they put the shape of the homes for visual purposes only. And
the only thing we've done in the past, and maybe I'm mixing, if the Board of Health has stated that they could only have a certain number of bedrooms, we had to put that in the conditions that was in the deed.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that will be on Bob Frederico's building permit.
Oh, okay. Okay. So in light of what you need to do before the next time around, does the July 14th date give you enough time to do that?
It gives me enough time, but at the risk of Damon and Ben being angry with me, I am actually away that week.
Well, you have two options. You have July 14th and August 16th.
I'm going to ask for us to hold the July 14th and hope that we're still on remote. And then it doesn't matter where I do it. And you should have everything by next week.
Okay, so July, if we continue to July 14th, what time slot is open?
We could do 6:50 PM.
6:50, 50?
Correct.
Okay, so does that work for you?
I'm giving you a lot of treats lately. Morning.
It works for me. If I'm doing a hearing while we're away, I have to deal with my my other half.
Okay.
Flowers.
What you
Flowers,
could
right.
do, we could motion to have you come back July 14th at 6:50, and you can obviously submit to continue to the August 16th if you need to continue.
That sounds like a plan.
Okay. So is there a motion then to continue 75 Ridge Road, special permit common driveway and special permit with site plan review to July 14th at 6:50 PM?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, Millie,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Anthony,
Aye.
Amy,
Aye.
and Carrie's an aye. Okay, great. So we will see you back on July 14th.
Yeah, then. Thank you so much tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And since we covered the rest of the board's business, unless there is anything else, any other business before the board tonight? No. Okay, great. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? Millie,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Anthony,
Aye.
Amy,